and we're going to do some more interesting stuff today, or right now. The plan for what we're doing now is we want to finish off the comments. So actually, we want to finish off the posts, do the comments real quick, and then we want to actually get straight into user authentication, because that kind of opens up an interesting world of how you present your application based on what's happening inside of the application. So whether you're logged in or not, what can you see? So what I'm going to do is very quickly finish off the code for the posts, and then do the comments controller. And I'm probably not going to be talking a whole lot during this. My hope or expectation is that you may have spent some time at least finishing the posts stuff off yourself. If you haven't, you can follow along, so you're not going to miss out on anything. But let's crack into it so we can get on with some more interesting stuff. So, yeah, the edit route. Let's just do this the real easy way. Just going to copy paste a whole bunch of code and change it as we need. Will make things a lot quicker. Yeah, I don't need that. We already have the create. What do we need to create? Why not pull that out? I don't need these comments. Stupid form. Let's make that post, form, post. Right to. This is actually meant to be post path. We don't want any of this JSON garbage. I'm not doing anything with that. I might do at some stage like an interesting little mini thing on how to do JSON API stuff. Well, I think it's kind of interesting. Form post, yada yada yada. Forms URL. This is actually post form post URL. Post destroy. Where's my create meant to be? I like to keep the code kind of the same. It's nice. Okay, so that should be that. We're going to need the edit code, which is cool. Edit.html.rb. Loading post, post. So let's do this the other way around because that's how we have it in the other one. Post. To form. God, I have a memory of a fish. Form post path. Form type post. And that should give us the edit. We don't need that. We don't need my stream. Why's my stream doing that? We are going to in the background oh, that's interesting. Let's change that. Form. See, I kind of want the form show to actually kind of No, that's dumb. Okay, let's do it like this instead. Form index. That's not what I want. That's what I want. Let's make it take us to all the posts. So form posts path form. Actually, that doesn't need to be that. And okay, that's called span. Pretty sure that's good enough. Cool. Okay, sweet. So now we're just going to quick link to get to the posts. I added some nav stuff and fixed the clearing, the this overlapping. It was, as I originally thought, it was actually just body padding to get it to drop the stuff down. So we're at the posts, post index. Let's make this a little bit more sensible. Forum.title posts. There you go, food posts. Cool. Now, what was I doing? Let's just make sure that this all works. It does not. Method post. Okay, yep. Because that's that. No route matches, form 3 posts. Right, okay, that's because that's because the form goes to that URL. It's a real pain in the ass. There's a few ways around this. Ideally, I'd like to just use form4 to get rid of this being such a pain. Form4 sets parent is. We basically want to where is the form4 record options? That's kind of what I want. I wonder if I can do that. Let's change this form4. Form post. Don't need the URL. Don't need that. Hopefully that'll play ball. Find form params. That's fine. Fix that. Again, because we have force browsed. That's interesting, actually. Forms 3, posts 1. That should have worked. Oh, interesting. Why is it doing that? Is that value incorrect somehow? So when I update it, it's oh. Oh, well, that's wrong. That shouldn't have worked. Odd. Let's try this. That's better. That shouldn't have worked, actually. I'm kind of surprised it did. It was basically not getting both the form and the post. I don't know why. At any rate, it does not matter. I think it's pretty much all we need. Let's just delete one just to make sure. Yep, okay, so we've set it up correctly. Alright, and we're going to do sort of the same thing with the post index as we did for the other one. We're going to have all the comments, and now this is actually going to be a nested resource as well, so I think it's going to be forum post comments path. Huh. This should actually have this. That's interesting. Okay, now we'll create that record. B-Rails G migration, create comments. Comments can have a they need a body of text. They need a post references. What else do they need? They'll need a user eventually. We'll get through around to like types and stuff later. That's not really necessary right now. I think that's all we need. I mean, I would have liked to be able to do this with scaffolds to do it kind of quicker, but the scaffolds will put it in the wrong place, and it's not going to end up being great. So migrate, but actually spell it right. Migrate the database. We will create a duplicate. We will create a comment which belongs to our post. Now, post will, we've seen this before, has many comments, and we can actually go one step further and use a new association type. Has many comments through posts, so we can actually reach through and find posts associated to forums through, comments associated to forums through posts. I believe that's the syntax for it. It's because we haven't set routes. Do and I haven't got a controller now either. Start writing the controller because it's going to whinge anyway. Forums controller. No, we want the posts one because it's kind of more similar. This will be comment controller. And now we kind of do a similar thing as we did last time, except this time we set the, this is going to be comment. This is going to be post. This will be, I believe, they actually just get namespaced under their own model name. Let's find out. Really would like a way of describing routes in a nice way. So yeah, they actually get namespaced under their own name. So forum ID, post ID, it's not like forum underscore post underscore ID or something. So we can set the post, post params change to comment params. We're now merging in the post instead of the forum. This is meant to be a comment. What's it got? It's got a title, so that's fine. Leave it as it is. Let's do at post and do at. Oh, actually, no, we can't do that. Damn it. Okay, fine. We'll just do it the lazy way. Comment. So this is what happens when you need to write code relatively quickly. This is actually forum post comment path and takes post comment as to be comment. Let's see how much of this we can get right in one go without it complaining. Forum post comment path. And this is pretty mental, like nesting. Hopefully we won't do too much of this again. We can actually bring it outside of the nesting and do it do this kind of other ways if it becomes over the top and we don't like it, but we won't do that right now. We can leave that for a future post controller. Okay, now I basically need to duplicate the posts folder, name it comments, and start editing some stuff. Post title comments. Post. Oh god. Alright, fine. Nope. No. Comment. Now this will take post. New forum post. Comments. I need to go eat student comments. Let's create a new one. That's wrong because it should be new comment. We need to pass this in. New form posts comments path. Render the form for form post comment. Post. We missed. Find method title for comment. You are. Really? That's wrong anyway. Find method title for comment. Is it not title? It should be. No, it's body. So body. So I think I've got that wrong in the controller. Where's this common controller? Yeah, that's movie body. My bad. Pretty sure I missed something else. Link to, okay, so the back method. Alright, let's close some stuff. What file is this from? This should be from the new forum posts comments path. What's the route? Forum post comments path. Okay, new comment. Set comment needs to set at comment. Whoops, where have we missed that? Comment needs to set at. Oh, if I'm whoops. Oh, thank you very much. Fixed. Okay, let's do this. I don't know what that would have done then. That would have yeah, that would have loaded like the post and then that would have been kind of wanky. All right, new comment. Thank you for the help. Okay, can't find post. Okay, because what? Trying to do this real quick so we can actually get on with doing interesting things. Comment was successfully created. Edit, set forum. Couldn't find forum with ID 2. Lame. All right. Really? That's kind of surprising. Okay, why is that actually set then? Interesting. So we've got some kind of bad data sitting around, so I'm actually going to clean this up. I think, yeah, we've got bad data sitting around from when we were kind of doing tests and examples of things, so I might actually just do a bit of a sneaky, do this and start from scratch because yeah, what we have right now is not actually the cleanest code in the world, or rather the cleanest data. It's looking up from post. Forum ID, post ID, comment ID. Really? When? I thought I destroyed all of those. Oh, okay. Foreign key constraints. Damn it! I have to do this going upwards instead. So this is actually what happens when you set your constraint correctly. It basically says you can't delete this associated record unless that the child records are gone. Okay, so we'll create a new forum and just call it general discussion. Create a post. Stuff about stuff. Yep, that's fine. And then we'll set a comment on that. Here's a comment. Okay. That's better. Yeah. Oh, hello. What have I missed? Right. So comment show is using title instead of body, which is wrong. Body. Did I just change the wrong thing? No. Where am I doing that? That's an index. Body. Okay, we're done. Now we can actually go and do some bloody OAuth. Alright. Let's go and do interesting things now, as opposed to all of this wankery. You can and probably should make this. Yeah, I think I fixed it in one place and not the other, unfortunately. You can go and probably should make it so like the forum actually just shows you all of the posts. Sorry, when you go to the forums, it will show you all of the posts. And then you go to the post and it shows you all the comments. So in the actual index route, it'll look a little bit more like a forum. I'm not going to do that right now because honestly I don't really think it's necessary to do. You guys are hopefully starting to get the idea of how this works. So we're going to leave it like that and then go and start doing kind of interesting things. So we'll clean this up. So user authentication is kind of hard, and the recommendation for most people is don't use the gold standard gem for it, which is called devise, but we're going to use the gold standard gem for it because eventually I actually want to do OAuth, which is the stuff that you can do to do things like log in with Google or log in with Facebook, and it's kind of cool, and it takes a lot of the burden off you as an application developer to have to do too much maintenance of auth on the other side. So to get cracking with that, let's add the devise gem. So add the devise gem, install the gems, and let's go read the docs real quick and make sure that we're not missed anything. So it is actually useful to read the docs for the devise gem. There is stuff in here around like how you actually install it and use it properly. So we're going to rush through it real quick, and you guys can read it in your own time. But so basically you bundle install it as we have any other gem, and we generate so this is doing a devise installation. I believe there's a rake task underneath. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to create some config for us in, I believe, the initializers folder, which we haven't touched on. So let's have a look at that real quick. So inside of the root level config, inside the initializers folder, there's a whole bunch of Ruby files, which, well, they don't have anything really in them at the moment. But essentially what happens is when your Rails application boots up, so it starts up, only the first time when it starts up, or in every subsequent time when it starts up, it will load all of the code inside of this initializer. So it's about setting like global config, or initializing global config. So it's a great way to set up gems that are kind of globally configured throughout your entire application's life. So when we run this, it's going to create like a devise.rb, and it'll probably create a few other things for us. So let's see what happens when we do it. Again, as I've mentioned before, do not do this with just Rails. Do it with bundle exec Rails because you'll get the right Rails version. I don't understand why people do this. It pisses me off to no end. Bundle exec Rails and generate device install, and let's see what happens. Okie dokie. So it's created the device initializer as we said it might. It's also created a locales file, which is kind of what you use for internationalization, but not really. There's better ways of doing it. So we won't get into what that is, and we won't bother touching that right now. So let's RTFM set up. So we have not got this actually, I don't believe. So this is for device mailing. If you want to send like mail when you create a new user or reset a password or anything like that. So it's telling us inside of our environmental config to set this. So we'll do that because we need to. I don't believe we have it, do we? Action mailer. No, we don't. Okay, so let's just blindly set it because that's always good. Device config for mailing. Unused in dev, essentially. If you were doing this in production, you would actually use a proper SMTP server or whatever it is that you want to use to deliver your mail. We are not going to be doing any mail delivery, so we do not need to worry. We just need to set it because device requires it, as it says kind of here. We have a root index. We set this earlier. Slash messages, I believe, are not being set right now on the application layout. I think they are per view, so we can drag that into our layout and check it. Yeah, let's pop them. Let's do like this. That's kind of cool. So what this will do is it'll basically give us a column on top of a column, so it'll always stack our notifications on top of everything else, which means we should and probably could rip this out of any of the views which already have it, like here. We're not going to do that right now. We'll just leave it for the minute. And what else did it ask us to do? You can copy device views for customization to your app by running Rails G device views. So what this is saying is, when you start trying to use the device gem, it gives you a set of routes magically. I believe it may have already done that. Nope, it has not. It gives you a set of magic routes, and what those routes will allow you to do is navigate to the user authentication views that device gives you. So all of the templates that we would create, they have as part of their gem. But if you wanted to modify it because you want your user form to look a little different, or you want to theme it similar to how your application looks, well then you want to modify it. So it gives you, basically it replicates it and actually drops those files into your views directories so you can mess with it. So we're going to run that because we probably want to do that. And you can see here it's created those view files, which we won't bother looking at right now because it's not necessary. What other things does it tell us to do? Now, we followed the instruction because we're good and do the things that we're meant to do. Okay, so it's telling us we need to actually look at the device config. So let's do that. This is the initializer that it told us about. I'm going to quickly read through this because we need to. Don't be sneaky and use my secret key. So it's telling us that device needs this thing uncommented, so it can do things like password resets and whatever else. Let's set this to some kind of random string. We'll just change a few values because honestly right now it doesn't really matter what it is. Within like a proper production environment, if you were to deploy this application, you absolutely should set this to something and never show it to anybody else, because it's a hugely problematic thing to give to people as it's part of your secret and your user auth. We don't need anything in here. Load and configure the ORM. So the ORM being active record, which is the thing that goes and fetches data and puts it into models for us, as we've used when we're doing things like post.all or post.find1, things like that. Config. This is basically trying to determine which keys you're using for authenticating a user. I believe this has a default, so we don't need to set this anyway. We don't need to set any of this. I'm just having a look to see what is necessary to get us going. Excuse me. Allow unconfirmed. We don't need to worry about any of this. Most of this stuff we don't actually need because we're going to be using OAuth to bootstrap users and keep users in check. For recoverable, that's fine. Sign out via delete. It's not such a big deal. So this is one of the HTTP methods, and it's saying that to remove the user form, you need to use the delete method as opposed to a post or a get, which is, yeah, not that big of a deal. Right, we're going to need this at some stage. We're going to need OAuth for Google, but we're not going to do that immediately. We're going to finish doing an installation first. So we need to now create a model. So obviously our users need to be set up in the database or backed by the database. So we need some kind of user model, and it's unsurprisingly going to be called user. So we will, in our Rails console, in our shell, bundle exec Rails generate devise, and we change it to user as opposed to capital model. And we see here it has created a migration for us. It's created a user model, some more test stuff, and it's created the routes that I was telling you it would create. So that it creates those routes now, so we're actually able to start kind of messing around with the user authentication. Sorry, my phone's going crazy. Okay, so we'll run the database migrations to actually put the user table in the database so it reflects the application. And we can see here we've, well, let's have a look at the migration. It's kind of interesting. Create users. It's really bloody long. Okay, so it's got a whole bunch of stuff: email, encrypted password. Oh, yeah, a whole bunch of fields. Not a lot of those are really worth going over right now. If you feel like having a read and trying to figure out what they do, that's cool. You don't really need to know too much about it right now because, again, a lot of this will be offloaded into OAuth on our behalf. So after that, we will restart our Rails application. And that's kind of the setup done. People are following me on Twitch. I'm feeling touched now. That's kind of the setup done to get all of the bits and pieces to allow us to start using user level things. However, what it hasn't got us is any way of actually logging in. Or let me rephrase, it hasn't exposed that login. So let's do it this way. Let's go like this. Okay. So we know that it created a bunch of routes. Let's see what routes it created us. We got a new user session route, which is at /users/signin. But we also have like a users kind of level route. So let's jump over to that and see what happens. Okay, we can't do that. Let's do this and sign in. Okay, so we're not going to actually, let's expose this. Why not? We'll put a sign in new user session path. So we remember that you take this, you just add underscore path, and you're done. So now we've got a way of kind of jumping in and signing in, and that's cool. And you know, let's make a login. Eventually, we want to put condition logic in here to show that as log out instead, and we kind of want it over in this right-hand corner, not just floating around randomly. But you know, we won't get too much into style right now. So let's sign up. Okay, so learn rails@gmail.com, and then our password can be PASSWORD, a very strong and secure password, and then sign up. And you can say, you know, it says this duplicate thing is because we now have the notices being output on both views, so the application and the forums index file, but we can ignore that for the minute. So what this has done is it's created us a user session, and user sessions are basically ways of the application tracking whether you are logged in or logged out. I won't go too much into that. It's at a very high level, it is not hugely complicated. At a very low level, it is hugely complicated. And there is a lot of web application security work that goes into keeping people secure and making sure that they don't get this stuff kind of broken on their behalf, because you know, you imagine you log in as a shopper to your to your favorite web shop, and you've got maybe your credit card details saved there. If somebody is able to log in as you or change your session or get your session, then suddenly they can either shop as you or buy stuff for themselves or steal your credit card information if some horrific thing was to be done, like storing credit card information in plain text. At any rate, we won't go into how user sessions work. What we will go into, though, is the rest of the documentation, because it tells us interesting things. So Devise will create some helpers inside your controllers and views. Helpers are just methods, and to set up a controller with user authentication, just add this before action, and it will do some magical things for us. So let's add this and see what happens. So we go to our application controller and we add this before action, which we have in other controllers. So we have before action set post in our post controller, but in this case we're actually just calling some method, authenticate user, and we haven't seen this before. This exclamation mark has a few different overloaded meanings in Ruby and Rails. The two primary meanings it has is, one, it may raise an exception. We haven't covered exceptions, but they are basically a programmatic way of making your application shit itself. Is the kind of quickest way of explaining it. The other one that it may mean is it mutates the data. So if you pass it something, it will mutate whatever you give it. And what I mean by that is it will change what you pass it. So I'm trying to think of one of the easier ones. gsub is not really all that useful. Okay, let's do merge. Merge is a good one. Actually, we're going to need to do that in Rails. So remember what we had before with our hash. We use different keys, but that doesn't matter. So we've created two hashes, and I'm going to show you what the exclamation mark means when we're talking about mutating. So a.merge, this time with exclamation mark, and this isn't available in every method, it's just that this method does happen to exist. A.merge b, and last time it gave us a hash back with those two keys. But this time what it will do is give us a hash back with those two keys, except it's made that into A, so A is now that hash. So it's actually mutated A, it's changed A to reflect that. Whereas originally, if we did this, and we did a.merge b without the exclamation mark, and look at A, it's still like that. So that's how mutating works. So, moving on, bit of water. What this is saying is go and authenticate the user. So, make sure we're logged in. And this looks great. It looks like, it's going to give us all the user authentication that we need and make sure that we're signed in. And remembering that this application controller is inherited by a lot of other controllers. So our posts, our comments, and our forums controller all three inherit. So, excuse me, not only do they inherit attributes, but they also inherit these before actions. So when we refresh this, we'll be fine because we're already signed in. However, if we decide to sign out, what we will find is we will be unable to navigate our application. So let's do a link to sign out. I believe it is user session destroy or something. Destroy user session path. We know that this is actually the destroy method. So you can actually pass this key in, I believe, actually it's afterwards, pretty sure. And no, it doesn't like that. It's because it's got a trailing comma. Refresh this. Let's just make sure that that does what we, okay, no, it's posting. We don't want that. We want to change the HTTP method. URL options except colon method is passed to URL4. Right. So where is that done? Need method. Oops. Okay. So it's passed as part of options, which is the last one. Oh, hang on. No, we've done this. We've done this wrong. Excuse me. Right. This should work. It's still posting. See, the options it's saying are alright, let's actually bloody read the thing. Oh, okay. So it's saying name, which we have passed. I wonder if we can just do it like this then. Yeah, let's do it like this. It's kind of a lazy way of doing it. Okay, it doesn't like that. It's alright, it's not using named parameters. We can't do it like that. It's a pain in the ass. Alright, we'll do it as a block, I guess. Alright, fine. I really wanted to do this in like a cleaner way, but basically what it's saying is we can't. So we have to do this as a block instead, which means we do it like this. Let's clean this up, it looks kind of ugly. Back to method destroy. Yep. Do some indenting because it looks a little bit nicer that way. And then yeah, that's fine. Sign up. No, I like it there. Unexpected keyword. Link to syntax error. Why now? It's whinging about. Okay, it's because we have no end. Now it's whinging about that. God, I hate doing blocks in ERB. It's kind of a little bit wonky. Yeah, let's just do it like this. Okay. All right. Yeah. This is kind of the canonical way of doing it. I've been trying to find a cleaner way of doing it because it looks really, really ugly to do it like this, and it's a little bit confusing. But the long story short is basically what you're doing is you're creating a block and executing code within it. From here to the end, this all gets thrown into this link to block as input, but it's really unintuitive. So I wouldn't blame anybody for kind of eschewing it and not wanting to do it that way. Now it's complaining about other things. What is it complaining about now? Okay, let's just do it. All right, let's let's stop screwing around with this. And we're just going to change this to be post. So we're actually changing the method that devise uses to, no, fuck it, we'll change it to get. We're changing the method devise uses to sign out because it's a little bit easier to do it that way. So in fact, we can get rid of half of this garbage code that we were just writing. Yeah, log out's kind of one word, really. Like that. Keep it consistent. All right, it's better. Okay, right. That was a bunch of frigging around that I shouldn't have done. I should have just changed it to get in the first place and call it done. So what we're now seeing, if we remember back before I was massively frigging around, we've set this before action authenticate user, before action to authenticate a user on every single route. So if we were to try and navigate to forums, we'd basically get, it may be a little bit tricky to see, but we're getting bounced and told, no, you need to sign in before continuing. And that's because we have now user authentication on every single route. But it's a little bit shitty because we kind of don't want that when we're trying to sign in, right? So we'll leave it as it is right now, but let's start making use of some of this. So when you log in with devise, you get a magical method or in fact, I think it may be an attribute that is set on your controllers and inside of your views called current user. So within any of your controllers or views, you can actually use this current user method. There is also a user signed in question mark, which is again a Boolean returning method. So we can do that. We can use it to start writing a little bit of conditional logic. So we only want to display certain things if the user is signed in. So if user is signed in, show them the forums and show them the logout. Right? So we're writing a conditional block here that says if there's a user signed in, they can see the forums path and the logout path. Else, show them login path. We'll allow them to see home, which is kind of the forums thing, but it looks nice to have home there. So now you can see when we refresh the page, we have home and forums, and then we log out, and then we get home and login. Okay? So we log back in, and that's that. That's kind of how you do the really basic user auth stuff. We don't need too much more before we start messing with what we do with these users. So we can go about this. Sorry, my phone is blowing up again. Yeah, my partner tried to call me while I was talking and I kind of missed the call. So we can go a few ways here. We can start associating users with models as we create them, which is kind of cool, but we need to make migrations to each of those models to allow us to set users on them, or we can go down the OAuth path, and I can leave user attribution up to you guys, or I may do both. Let's do the OAuth stuff, because the OAuth stuff is kind of cool. So we've got devise, but we need to know how to do OAuth. So there should be in here instructions on how to do OAuth. Let's see, we need to read the docs. Click on the authable, and we'll start reading some documentation. That is not good documentation. That is bad documentation. Creating OmniAuth, configuring origin. That's not very useful to us. We'll read the devise wiki. Now the thing here is it's really, really useful to get used to reading documents like this, and a lot of the Ruby gems come with fantastic documentation, because you're not going to remember how every single gem works. It's just too complicated to remember this kind of stuff. So me reading this kind of stuff is basically what I would do even as a professional, writing Rails code or Ruby code pretty much every single day. So it's basically saying there's a list of strategies available to our OmniAuth module. One of them should be Google. Yes, it is. What is this saying? Official. No, okay, apparently yeah, Google one is not official. That's fine. Alright, so we need to add the OmniAuth Google gem to our gem file. We know how to do this. User authentication. OAuth with Google. We'll install the gem and let's read how to use it. add the middleware to a Rails app in config initialize omniauth.rb. So we will grab that and make an omniauth.rb file. And this will need to be set. I won't go into too much of how to pull environmental settings into your application. So if you want your application to have secrets, but you don't want them actually inside of the code, which you pretty much should never have inside of the code, there are ways to load it from your computer. So when it's in a production-like environment, you can pull it in from the servers. If you want to look into that, my suggestion is a gem called .env, D-O-T-E-N-V, and the Rails version of it, .env-rails, coupled with another gem called settings logic. They're both really, really useful to have. I use them in every single Rails application I write. And essentially you get to write, you get to decouple secrets from your application. We're not going to do that right now though. Instead we are going to put these secrets directly in here, which we don't have yet. We need to go and get them from Google first. So we set that, and well, it's breaking already, so that's okay because we haven't, that's a constant, so we'll set them to just strings for the minute because we don't actually have those secrets, and we can refresh and nothing should be remiss. Now we need to go figure out how the bloody hell to use this. Let's see. Well, developer strategy. Okay, that's not what we want. So let's see. Well, we can set that inside of our device.rb. Config.omniauth. We actually, instead of using we could use that instead. In fact, we probably should use that instead. Let's do that. So we're telling Devise to use this as our omniauth provider. So we'll restart because it's in the initializer. It's going to whinge. Well, actually, it won't whinge because it's not doing anything with it right now. But now let's see. We need to make a model and say, okay, so we have that model. We know this. And we haven't added the omniauthable. So this is basically saying, calling a devise method on the model and passing it a set of things that the user model can do. So it's registerable, it's recoverable, it's rememberable, trackable, validatable, things like that. We also need it to be omniauthable. So these are all described in the devise documentation, what they do and how to use them. So I won't go into what they do because a lot of them I don't recall exactly what they do and it's not really important. So we've set that, which is great, and we need to now set the omniauth provider to be Google. Let's see what happens when we restart this. Cool, okay, that's good. We're so far so good. Now, after making that, Okay, so apparently we should have 2 new routes. So if we run these like rake routes, we should have a omniauth route, and we do. Users/auth/Google, which is kind of what we want. Note that the device does not create *_URL methods. Yep, that makes sense. By clicking on the above link, the user will be redirected to Facebook. Okay. Alright, so we need to create a link instead of the login link that we currently have. We need it to do something a little different. We need to use that route that we just created to tell it to go and use Google. So we will copy that, chuck it in here, sign in with Google. Eventually I'd like to change this to like the little Google logo. And now that'll display us sign in with Google. And this won't work because it'll go, I don't know how to do that. And that's fine. So next step is telling it what controller will handle the OAuth flow. If you are not familiar with the OAuth flow, I suggest you become familiar with it. I believe there is a good article from, who is it? It's one of the providers, DigitalOcean. OAuth, I'm pretty sure is the one. Yeah, this one. So the OAuth flow kind of goes a little bit like this, and I'll use their diagram as an example. It's quite useful. So you as a user say, I want to log into some website as with Google. So the application, so our forum, sends you an authorization request, and you send back an authorization grant and say, yes, I am requesting that you allow me to sign in to your website with Google. So the application then, having the authorization grant, goes off to the authorization server, which is Google. So in fact, this entire block is Google. And says, I have this authorization grant, and it passes along some extra information that you put into the application, so it identifies itself as well. So it kind of sends across its own username and password, which are called the ID and secret, the consumer ID and consumer secret, or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact nomenclature. And then the authorization server, assuming that it works, so in this case Google, sends back a token and says, okay, yes, I believe that you are the right person and who you say you are. You may log in, you may make requests on behalf of the user. So the next thing that it'll do is it'll send that access token that it just got back to Google and say, well, I want to access the user details. So in this case, we'll want to access the user email address. So we can set that inside of our application and know a little bit about the user. We can access things like first name and last name, depending on the permission levels that we say our application needs and the permission levels that the user agrees to when they are doing the omniauth flow. So that's kind of how omniauth works. It's quite interesting. Let's kick on and actually finish routing it up and such business. So device for users, we are actually going to kill this original one and say that we want to use the omniauth callbacks. Yeah, that's good. We'll do that. And now we need an OAuth controller, so something to actually handle the omniauth flow on our behalf. So when Google comes back to us and says things, or when the user is trying to go to Google, this will be handled by the controller. So we need a file inside of we need a folder inside of controllers called users. As we can see here, it's namespaced under users. And the file is called omniauth callbacks controller.rb. So we can paste that. This is actually, so we've seen this kind of namespacing thing before. What I would recommend doing is actually splitting this like this, and implementing it like that. That's just a little bit of a better way of writing the code. There are gotchas that will bite you in the ass if you don't do it like that long term, so I would highly recommend doing that. So now, the callback should be implemented as an action with the same name as the provider. So Google, here is an example of our Facebook provider that we could add to our controller. So what we're going to do is steal all of this code because we are lazy and don't want to write it ourselves. So we're going to use Google, and then we need to implement the method below. Okay, so we'll do that in a minute. If user persisted, so this is a method on application on our model that basically says, is the user actually in the database? And if they are, then we get redirected to the user path. I'd rather we didn't. I want to go to the user. I want to go to the root path, because then they're logged in and that's kind of cool. Then we set a flash message that basically says, yes, you've signed in with Google. Otherwise, if they didn't sign in successfully, we will redirect them to, well, we can actually redirect them to the root path because they are not actually able to do anything inside of the application when they're not signed in. So they can go to the root path either way. And then the failure is happening to redirect them to the root path. So they explain a little bit what this does. So we'll probably have to mess around with this hash, this request.env hash, wherever the hell it happens to be here, because what's returned is possibly not going to be the same from Google. Some kind of not very interesting stuff, and the method that they want us to implement for the from omniauth, which it says we need to implement. So we'll go and put that on our user model. So this is a class method on the user model, which allows us to take information from our omniauth provider, in this case Google, and try and create a user with it, or log in a user. So in this case it's first or create, which basically says find the first user that matches this, or create a user that looks like this. In this case, we're not going to set a name or an image. We will just do that. Okay, so there's some kind of weirdness to this code that I need to explain. This where is actually the same as when we do, or we may not have done this. It basically allows you to search against your database given a model. So if we wanted to search posts, so post.where, a contrived example would be ID is 1. So we give it some kind of condition, and it goes to MySQL or to our SQL database and execute that. In this case, there's no posts that are of ID 1. So what do we have? Post.where title form ID 6. Here we go, and we'll get something back. Right? So what this is doing here is it's actually creating a method on the user model, like from omniauth, which then internally basically translates to user where, and then does some code based on what we pass it. So it's called scoping, and is very useful for a whole bunch of reasons. that will become more apparent the more we do things like searching. Anyway, let's crack on. The method tries to find an existing user by the provider. If no user is found, so it's doing that first to create. Okay. All right, we don't need to worry too much about the rest of this right now. We won't worry about logging out just yet. Okay. SSL. Okay, I think we're good. So now the next thing we need to do is actually come over to Google as a developer, and there's this document that shows you how to set up OAuth for Google, and I'm using my personal my Gmail account for this Twitch, and we're going to visit the API console. So we need to obtain OAuth 2 credentials, which is that ID and secret that I said that the application passes to Google. And no, I don't want any of that. Yes, I agree. Haven't read it. Don't care. Enable APIs and services. We should probably follow along. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there's a whole lot of stuff. It is not entirely obvious to me which one we need. Let's see if we can figure it out, eh? We've got login. I imagine it's going to be something along the lines of users, but I'm not super clear on that. Does it make mention? Okay. Not very useful. Client libraries. Oh, I'm kind of curious. Okay. So we need to figure out which of the libraries, or rather the APIs, we need to authenticate against, I guess, or start using. So my suspicion is it's going to be something like maybe the Google Plus API or something along those lines, but oh, we could. I wonder. Let's Google it, eh? And this is where it comes in handy. You must enable the Contacts API and the Google Plus API. Okay. Contacts API. Enable. Create. New project. My project. Let's call it my forum, because we're cool and can think of great names. All right. I thought I just did that. I did not. And we also need Google Plus. Sweet ass time. Did that not enable? Okay, to use this API, you may need credentials. Click Create Credentials to get started. Okay. Find out which kind of credentials you need. What kind of API are you using? User data. Well, let's enable the other API first, before we go too much further. Enable APIs and services. And we need the Google Plus one. Let's enable that. And create credentials. Now it's not immediately clear which of these we need. My suspicion is it's going to be something like the Google Plus API. But let me see if this elucidates us. Yeah, okay. Select your context credentials, select the OAuth consent screen, hey? Alright. Alright, product name, my forum, HTTP localhost 3000. This is the, actually that needs to be sneaky, /users/auth/callback. So this is where the user will be redirected once they've finished their auth flow with Google. We don't need privacy policy, surely. Okay, now we save that. Okay, we're going to need to do the consent thing, I guess. Right. Okay. We'll need this in a minute, because this will be kind of useful for us. All right, we need to create credentials, apparently. Yes, we need an OAuth client ID for a web application named my forum. Oh, hello. What's this? Okay. Okay, so it should be just localhost 3000, I assume then. And then it should be localhost 3000 callback. Origin URIs must contain a path or end with /. Okay, get rid of that. And let's create. Here's your client ID. All right, we'll chuck this in to here. And chuck this secret into here. Don't copy these. Will be my preference. We may need to set these up in the OmniAuth thing as well. I'm not super certain which one it's going to use because the docs are a little bit out of date and unclear. So we'll just we'll work with what we have and make it work. Okay, cool. Alrighty. That's fine. Hello? Okay, we've got them enabled. Okay. Alright, we may be very well ready to start trying to see what happens when this attempts to use Google. My suspicion is it will break because yeah, OmniAuth is not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. It's very unclear. So let's try and sign in with Google and see what happens. Hey, raise OAuth. Okay, so that's on. We may have to wait the 10 minutes. That's a little bit of a pain in the ass. Right, so the stack is inside of the user thing. Where has that gone? What's the response? Okay, response button. Helps if you type properly. Requested URL OAuth get request token was not found on this server. So has it hit our controller? It has not. So it's gone pretty much straight out to Google, which is wrong. So let's get rid of that for the minute and restart. I'm not sure which of these is more up to date, so it's kind of got me a little bit curious which of these may be breaking. So let's try the other one. Let's try and remove this. Okay, that's not working either. That's fine. What else are we missing then? Okay. We have done. Did we add that gem? Oh. We have the wrong gem. That is the original OAuth gem, not the new OAuth gem. So there's two versions of OAuth. There's OAuth 1 and there's OAuth 2. We were using OAuth 1, which is very wrong. So we will actually use this instead and fail less miserably, preferably. Okay, get rid of this. We don't need it. Get rid of this because it's probably wrong now. Restart our Rails app and RTFM. This is what happens when you don't RTFM. Okay. You can now access the OmniAuth Google Auth 2 URL. Okay. Let's see where we're at with authentication now. Yeah, okay, so it is saying that we have the wrong provider. So inside of our user thing, we need to change this to need to change it to Google_OAuth2, I believe. Restart. Refresh. Right, sign in with the auth authorized path. So it doesn't like the provider we have given it. So let's do a bit of reading. Samples. Okay, that's fine. believe we have this. We do. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So this is what happens when you really don't read the friggin' manual. So we should have been reading the manual this entire time, instead of trying to kind of guess our way through this. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right thing to read. Okay. Device for users controllers. I believe we have this already. Yep. Theirs is just a little bit nicer though. It's using the newer hash styles. Could go with 2. Let's steal this entire code because it looks a bit nicer. Yes. All right. Again, we want to move to the root path instead. Again, root path. Right. Right. And then if, well, this is actually a hell of a lot better. This is a much, much nicer set of code that is far more relevant to what we're doing, So, get rid of this. What this is saying is basically, if the user doesn't exist, then create it with their name and their email address and some kind of password. Whether we want password or not is kind of a little bit... we don't have a name, I don't believe, on the user model, so we're not going to need that. And that's probably it. All right, we should use the correct paths. Otherwise, we're going to have issues. Here. And restart the server and see what happens. See if we can actually get this to work now, hey? Alright. Sign in with Google. There we go. Alright, redirect URI mismatched. The redirect URI and request HTTP localhost 3000 using blah 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 does not match the ones authorized for the OAuth client. Okay, so we need to get that working. What have we done a little bit wrong? What redirect URIs do we have wrong? So we are redirecting to it should be localized 3000 users. Oh, okay, we've missed the users part. That's what we did wrong. Did we? Did we do this wrong? We did do this wrong. How is it different? Oh, that's why. Need that. Save. Let's try again. Okay. Let's try signing in with Google. Sign in with Google. Choose account. All right. Now it's whinging that certificate verification failed. All right. So that's probably because we're using SSL at some point and then dropping SSL at some other point. Yeah. Okay. We don't actually want to verify SSL. So this is kind of a dodgy way of doing things, but it kind of gets us where we need to be. What it's saying is basically it's got an HTTPS connection, and it wants to use SSL because we're at some point using SSL, but we don't have a valid SSL certificate being supplied. So it goes, oh, this is not valid, I don't know who you are, this may be like a man-in-the-middle style attack, so we're not going to continue going forth with this. So instead what we do is we say if we're in development mode, so this is Rails is actually a model that we can use, or I believe it might be it's probably a class. You can use the env method and call development on that, and it basically asks, are we in development style, like are we developing this right now, or are we running in some kind of production mode, which is when you roll this out to all of your users. And if we're running in development mode, it doesn't try and verify the SSL certificate. So it basically lets you kind of get away with doing some less secure things. So, hopefully this is the last of it. It's been a very long and kind of not the greatest example stream, but that's kind of how it goes. Like, this is stuff that I don't implement very often, and quite honestly, it's a little bit beyond what I would normally do in terms of OAuth stuff. I spend a lot more time doing service integrations and things like that. So OAuth is kind of not really my thing, but it's something that I thought a lot of people are very interested in, or would be very interested in to do. So, you know, even if it's not coming from necessarily an expert level OAuth integrator, my hope is that you guys kind of were able to follow along and get yourself to being able to authenticate with Google. So I say that, but we haven't checked that this worked. Now, fingers crossed. Okay, so the action Google OAuth 2 could not be found, which means we need to set this to OAuth 2 instead of the original Google one. That's cool. We can do that now. Undefined local variable method access token for user. Okay. Access token, hey. Alright, let's find out why the hell that's the thing. Where is that set? Oh, okay, because the method signature does not match. So this was actually what was supplied. This is what happens when you copy paste code from the internet, ladies and gents. It causes issues. Sign in with Google. Okay, so now we're sort of getting somewhere. Sign in and redirect to root path event authentication. Undefined method router name. Huh, this is a new one I've never seen before. That is very interesting. I wonder why that is doing that. So, what does this guy say? Redirect. Oh, haha. Again, not doing what I should be doing. Okay, so this method actually takes a user model. It doesn't take a path to redirect you to. What we actually want to do is sign in user and then redirect to root path with notice successfully logged in with Google. Alrighty. So we actually want to sign the user in and then redirect them elsewhere because we don't want to be bounced to the user's show page, which would have been what it would do. So let's do that. And we're done. We finally signed in with Google. And our logout won't work because it will do something completely different. What I am going to do now, as the total expert that you guys have seen me being, I will leave that as an exercise to the user. I'll go and Google it myself and figure out how to do it. The next couple streams, I promise, will be coming from a lot more of an expert level. This was something that I wanted you guys to be able to do and experience, but it's something that I don't do myself very often, honestly. So hopefully it was useful and interesting for you. Go and mess around with that. You now have user authentication and you know how to check whether a user is logged in. So realistically, you have all of the tools you need to start doing some really, really cool and interesting stuff. Plus you have a semi-functional forum. I could leave the entire series here. I will not. I have plenty more things that I can show you and hopefully pique your interest in. So I'll catch you guys next time.